Hey everybody, it's Wave Storm Tracking Team Meteorologist Ryan Hoke here. We are live on Wave Weather Now, which is, of course, our 24/7 live streaming weather channel that you can get on the Wave Now app for your smart TV device, the Wave Weather app, and of course on wave3.com. We are also live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube this evening. We are pulling all of our resources together to tell you exactly what's going to be happening here for the overnight hours. And tomorrow is our Wave Weather Alert Day is in effect right now. Winter weather advisory in effect as well. Let's start off with what's going on now. You'll see a little bit of a wet lens there from our SkyTrack camera in Paristown. That's a sign of things to come. It's going to get very wet as we head throughout this evening, but also icy in spots and snowy in others. Let's break it down for you here. We've got so many folks who are just joining us now on social media, over 200 viewers right now, 224 to be exact here. Kimberly's here from Radcliffe. We've got Lynette from Charlestown, Sarasota, Florida. Hello to Debbie, to you down there. Milton, Kentucky, our friends in Triple County up there. Kathleen Foster now in here. Glenda tuning in from Bardstown. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments section of our Facebook Lives, both on my Facebook page and the Wave Weather and Wave Facebook pages. I can see all of those right here. Display them on the screen if you're watching us on social media. I'll also read them to folks who are live on our 24/7 live stream on our website as well, since we won't be able to see those there. Geneva is also here from Louisville. And of course, we've got DJ from North Vernon. Hello to all you folks out there. All right, so why did we declare the alert day? It's because we've got a winter weather event tonight. I want to stress right off the bat, this is not an ice storm. This is not even technically a winter storm, but this is certainly an impactful round of winter weather moving in. We're going to call this a wintry mix, but what exactly you see depends on where exactly your location is. If you live along I-64 here in Louisville, toward Frankfort, and even to our west from Corydon over to southern parts of Crawford County, you'll see mostly sleet and snow. If you live south of that line, if you're like in Bullitt County, on southward down towards, say, E-Town, even south of there toward Campbellsville, you would likely see more of a freezing rain and sleet scenario. Freezing rain, a little bit more troublesome because it's that glaze of ice that can make it slip and fall on things like sidewalks and parking lots, and also cause driving issues too. You don't like slick roads. And unfortunately tonight, I think we will see some snow-covered and some icy roads at times, especially if they're untreated here. Treated roads will do okay initially, but temperatures will get so low that we might have some trouble with that even tomorrow morning here. This begins tonight pretty much now and decreases as we head toward, say, noontime on Tuesday, only for another round of some wintry mix to be possible south of Louisville Tuesday night. So this is a 1-2 punch, but the second punch, a lot of us may miss and may not be quite as impactful. All right, let's get to the goods. This is the stuff you want to see. Here's what we've got cooking for you. It's the winter weather advisory issued by the National Weather Service for areas along and south of I-64. No, there's no winter storm warning in effect in our counties at this time. You'll see that little bit of pink to our west in southern Illinois, and that's where they could have some slightly more impactful wintry precipitation. We're not completely ruling out an isolated spot here right along the Ohio River in the I-64 corridor where we could get some slightly heavier snowfall and sleet accumulations than what we are going to be showing you on our map. But the thing is that sleet does not accumulate very efficiently. It tends to decrease those snowfall totals here. So we really don't want to go with anything higher than what I'm about to show you here because of that alone. But there could be a couple spots that try to overachieve in a setup like this tonight. What's happening right now? Wintry mix is now moving into our western counties. We've We've had a little bit of light drizzle here in Louisville. Temperatures are at 33 degrees, so that is just liquid plain rain that's falling here in the city. That's very, very light at this time. As we notice here that our temperatures are falling, that gives us pause because we're like, hey, guess what? Not only is the temperature going to fall pretty quickly as this moves in, but the road temperatures will fall overnight tonight too. So even though the road temperatures are just slightly above freezing now, they'll likely fall well below freezing early tomorrow morning. Corydon's at 30, Tell City 30, Louisville 33, but everybody else pretty much below freezing. Look at those 20s from Evansville to Owensboro to Jasper to Paoli. That's a little troubling because as that this is coming from. Northeast Arkansas, snow, sleet, freezing rain, all falling in that area. Missouri Boot Hill, same story. Southern Illinois. This is lined up pretty far back, so we will see several hours of this, if not more, as this whole slug of moisture has to move through overnight tonight with the various types of precipitation that it will put down. These are storm reports, and the reports that you see that look like this icon right here almost looks like raindrops. That's actually sleet. So those are sleet reports. Lots of sleet reports to our west. The little icy icicles you see, those are freezing rain. So we've got a few freezing rain reports out of this as well. And I'm able to see here on a separate app where some of these reports are coming from as well, especially a little closer to here locally. And what we've got moving in is kind of a mix of freezing rain and sleet, pretty much from Santa Claus, Indiana, down to Tell City. Some of the latest reports coming in from another thing called MPing, which is a report that you can make to the National Weather Service through an app like Radar Scope. So we're able to see those as well. Can't display those, unfortunately, but we can see them, and it gives us a good idea of what we're seeing too, just by those citizen reports alone. The reason we're having this at all is because there's this system that's moving through. It's an area of low pressure, and as this thing beelines to the north and east, it will take all of this precipitation right here and kind of send it straight through here. This is kind of a classic winter storm track for us. Again, this is not technically a winter storm. We don't have 4 more inches of sleet and snow accumulation here, but this is a pretty typical track for us to see one of these areas of low pressure well to our south, the cold air over us, precipitation getting thrown into the cold air. But the problem is that you've still got warmer air above your head, and that creates a wintry mix, freezing rain and sleet. And you don't want to see that, snow lovers, because that cuts down on your snow totals here, all right? So this is what you came for. This is the snow map, right? So many people asking for a snow day. We've got Catherine Corbett saying, this teacher needs a snow day. Well, depending on where you're at, you might get one. But again, this depends on so many factors. And so many of these are human factors too, as to whether you have a snow day. So it's not just the presence of winter weather, it's how is it impacting the area? What is the threshold for the superintendent and the school board and whoever else makes that decision to call off school, right? 1 to 2 inches of snow and sleet doesn't sound like that much, but consider this. We get most of our vehicle crashes during winter events that are between a ½ inch and 1 inch of snow. That gives us a little bit of concern, right? It's because people think that less than an inch of snow, no big deal, right? But the roads are slicker than snot. You just might not be able to see it as well when you've got such a low snow total like that. That's our concern heading into the Tuesday morning commute. It could be slick and snow covered on those untreated roads, and even some slick spots are possible on treated roads as temperatures will be well down into the 20s. Once you get below the mid 20s, you start to run into issues with road salt being less effective. It's not ineffective, by the way, just less effective. So they may have to do more rounds of treatment with this based on the temperature alone, all right? So for Kimberly asking how much snow in Louisville, it's on your screen, 1 to 2 inches of snow, but consider this is not straight snow, all right? This is going to be a lot of sleet. That's why we're not going above that 1 to 2 inch. I do think this heavier band that you see will exist. The problem is how much will it accumulate up? Because if there's a ton of sleet in this and barely any snow, it might be hard to get an inch or two. But if we get enough snow and sleet together to get 1 to 2 inches, I think that's the zone pretty much from Corydon, Brandenburg, Louisville, LaGrange, Shelbyville, Simpsonville, Frankfort, Newcastle, down toward Eminence. You folks would see that too. Outside of that range, if you're north of the river, you're seeing less than an inch of snow and sleet out of this. South of the Ohio River and south of really the 64 corridor, because this does include Frankfort, Shelbyville, south of the Ohio River. If you're south of that corridor of I-64, you likely won't see much snow out of this, or sleet for that matter. You would be getting more into this ice glaze situation with freezing rain. The farther south you go, the more of this warm layer of air aloft we're going to have that will create more of a freezing rain and ice glaze situation here. Now, I want to stress this. This is very important. This is not 2009. This is not the January 09 ice storm by any stretch, not even close. Look at our scale at the top of the graphic here. It goes from 1/10 of an inch to 1 inch of ice accretion. We say accretion because freezing rain doesn't accumulate like snow does or even like rainfall does. It accretes. It kind of develops a glaze of ice on a surface through a process called accretion. I know that's technical. I know that seems weird, but we have to be precise on this, and that's why we call it accretion. Just think in your head accumulation, but accretion slightly different in how it develops. Anywho, this scale goes from 1/10 of an inch to 1 inch. 2009, we had more than an inch of ice in so many areas. We're not even going to see 1/10 of an inch of ice in most of our counties here as we go through the overnight hours. This is pretty much up to 1/10 and maybe exceeding 1/10 in some spots in southern Kentucky. If you're along and south of the western Kentucky and bluegrass parkways, you've got that chance of seeing 1/10 of an inch, which is kind of just a thicker-ish glaze of ice. A thin glaze would be experienced here in Louisville out of this level of freezing rain. Again, this is not an ice storm. You need to have well more than what you see here on this map to get up to ice storm criteria. This ain't it, as they say, all right? So this is something that we'll be watching as a winter weather event, but this won't be something, most likely, that we'll remember 25, 30, 40 years down the road. We'll probably remember it for the next few weeks at least, that's for sure. Let's see, Mike is wishing for 5 or more inches of snow at some point this winter. Yeah, snow lovers, this has been kind of tough. There have been a lot of cold weather impacts and some snow impact, but nothing like super heavy just about yet. We've got questions about like Crestwood and areas about Louisville, or questions about Louisville. If you have an individual location question, I cannot answer that because I've been showing you these maps here. You got to know where you live. It's so important. Know which county you're in. Know where you are relative to other counties and cities, all right? I know that seems like such a basic thing for some of us, but if you're especially new to the area, take some time. Figure out exactly where you are, because in severe weather, we can't answer these questions. So we kind of have to wean you folks off of these individual location questions. I know it's so hard, but we post these maps here so that you can see. And we can't tell you down to the zip code, like you're going to see 1.25 inches of rain and snow and this, that, and the other. We can only do this a bit more broadly because 1, we're humans, and 2, this is an inexact science. We give you estimates. We give you forecasts. We don't give you the super exactness that a computer could, which, by the way, would not be accurate just because computer forecasts are typically not that great. Human forecasts still win out pretty much every time here, all right? So Courtney has a great question about this 1/10 of an inch of ice. Will it affect travel in the morning? Most likely, yes, especially sidewalks and parking lots. People walking, this will be a problem. And for cars too, just because you're going to have a situation where if you have an untreated road, you could have a glaze of ice across that, and any amount of a glaze of ice on a road, not a good situation. So you could have some travel problems in that ice zone, no matter how small of a accretion of ice we get. There's still some issues that we'll see. Thank you, Courtney, for that question. Let's see here. Let's see. Mike is saying we are dreading this after Friday's mess where I-75 in Georgetown was shut down. Yeah, that was a big mess. We'll have to see how this goes in the morning impact-wise. I think at this point, I would expect there to be some pretty decent travel issues. Again, not an ice storm, not a winter storm, but I would expect there to be some problems in the morning, all right? So if you have to be out, plan ahead, spend a little extra time getting ready earlier in the morning so that you can be out the door earlier as well. Might mean you have to wake up earlier. I know that's not great, but you got to make sure that you're out the door on time so that you can be to work and school and on time if that's where you have to be in the morning. Juanita says, when do they make decisions about schools? I know for JCPS, somewhere in the 4 a.m. hour, they do that. So we'll see what they do. Nicole has a great question. Will the roads in E-Town still be bad by noon? There will be improvements. Once the sun comes up, things will improve pretty well, all right? But the thing is that if we don't get above freezing in a lot of areas tomorrow, and if we still have some freezing drizzle in spots that moves through during the day, it might not get that much better. But I do expect improvements overall heading into the day tomorrow. We'll just have to see what the temperature does. And there's another wave of wintry precipitation tomorrow night. We'll talk about that here in just a second here. Another good question from Cody. Monk, why not a winter weather advisory for Clark County, Indiana? You guys are too far north for the National Weather Service criteria on this. The NWS, and it kind of aligns with our forecast, thinks that that main zone for problems will start pretty much in Louisville and south. So keep that in mind. Let's see. Peggy says, what are your thoughts on flights out of SDF? They're still going to run tomorrow. You'll be probably, if you're heading out on a flight, you'll have to go through the de-icing process where they got a big cherry picker or two of them spraying you down with this different colored liquid here to make sure that there's no ice buildup on the wings or fuselage during your takeoff. But that's really it. Louisville Muhammad Ali International Airport, they are pros at this, all right? They got to make sure that one of the world's largest package hubs has to keep running through all of this type of thing. So the passenger flights also benefit from that. So we're in pretty good shape here. One more question, and then we'll get to a little bit of science and talk about tomorrow evening's version of this. How does road travel look from Louisville to Columbus, Indiana? Will it be icy? As you go north, it will improve. And that seems counterintuitive because typically you go north and it gets worse. The last winter weather event we had, it got worse as you went towards Seymour and Columbus and Indianapolis. This one will be literally inverse of that, but in a limited way, because here in Louisville may be about the worst when it comes to the freezing rain, sleet, and snow combo, just because we might get an inch or two of sleet and snow kind of compacted together. That's kind of a mess with a slight thin glaze of freezing rain below and on top of that. And as you go south of Louisville, you don't get as much of that sleet and snow kind of heft, if you will. I know an inch or two isn't much, but you get the idea. But you get more of this like thin glaze of ice that's, as you see here on this map, up to 1/10 of an inch, all right? So I think that once you get north of the city, it's not bad. And if you leave during the daylight hours, it won't be as bad as, say, 4, 5, 6 a.m. when things will get a little dicey here in the metro for that morning commute. So what is even all of this that I'm talking about? I know that most of us watching probably aren't super weather nerds like yours truly here. So why do we have different types of precipitation? Well, let's explain. We know what rain is. That's easy, right? Basically, there's water in the clouds. It starts raining, water on the ground. And the reason for that is because you get warm air all the way through from the cloud to the bottom of the ground. Easy stuff. Freezing rain is where it gets weird. You get a warm layer of air in the atmosphere above our heads, and this can start as low as like 1,000 feet, 500 feet, and it goes up a pretty extensive distance up in the air. And that is enough warm air and enough of a thickness of warm air to melt all the snowflakes where it's below freezing above our heads, and it falls just as rain, and it freezes on contact with the ground or objects or roads or grass or trees, etc. And it creates this thin glaze of ice through a process called accretion, where essentially you get liquid water drops that adhere to ice and create more ice as the water drops freeze. That's called accretion. Freezing rain is no bueno. This stuff is literally some of the worst weather we get. Thankfully, we're not getting a ton of it tomorrow. This is why this is not an ice storm, all right? Just because it is so slick, it's so troubling. It is a situation where if you get enough of it, you could get power outages. We are not expecting power outages, by the way, at least on a big scale tomorrow. Maybe an isolated one or two, a few customers here or there, but nothing like 2009, nothing like a typical ice event around here, all right? Sleet is a weird duck just because that warm layer we talked about that melts all the snowflakes and creates freezing rain, it's a little smaller, and you get a bigger layer of cold air near the surface. So that snowflake falling from the sky in the below freezing air suddenly hits that warm air, it starts to melt, but it doesn't melt all the way. So you still get like a watery snowflake that then refreezes into an ice ball once it gets below freezing again, and then boop, hits the ground as sleet, which are ice pellets sometimes. We go to snow, that's easy. It's below freezing all the way from the cloud to the ground level here, and we get dendrites or snowflakes, the common name for those. So that's what we will see is a mix of all of this, but pretty much freezing rain, sleet, and snow, the main three, as temperatures are now falling below freezing in most of our counties. So let's talk timing on this. Midnight, 80% chance of wintry mix. 4 a.m., 40% chance. Notice how during that critical morning commute time frame, our wintry mix chance goes down. But the problem is that the damage will already have been done on the roads when it comes to the accumulation of the sleet, snow, and some of that ice glaze, all right? So even though the chance of things falling from the sky will be low during the morning commute, the chance of things being on the ground and causing traffic problems is pretty high tomorrow. So much so that we've given it a red light for the Tuesday morning commute. Snow and ice-covered roads are possible, especially those that are untreated. Treated roads will fare better. I think the main interstates will be okay by the morning commute, but overnight tonight, especially after that 10, 11 o'clock time frame when I'm driving home, it might be a bit messy, especially those roads like the Snyder and the Watterson that may not get touched quite as often by the road crews, perhaps. By the afternoon, the roads improve. Temperatures will try to get above freezing. We'll see how that works. We got 34 here in the city, but if that cloud cover holds tough, if we get a little bit of freezing drizzle, that might keep temperatures down at 32 or below, and then your untreated roads wouldn't really improve at all. But we'll see how that works out. Typically, when you get the sun even filtered through a thick cloud deck, it can help out a bit. So it's not all lost, right? And then by Tuesday evening, another round of light wintry mix moves in. I'm not super impressed by this part, but it may be enough for southern Kentucky to eke out a winter weather advisory and some limited impacts down there. There's another chance of a wintry mix well down in southern Kentucky by Thursday morning that I'm becoming less and less concerned about as that continues to push south in the data. We'll see how this goes, though. We have to take these one at a time because when one wave of precipitation moves through, it can affect how the second one is going to impact you. And based on the track of the first one, you can get a change in the track of the second one. That's why the weather data, when you've got multiple different little disturbances like this moving through, is kind of trash after that first event because the first event has to come through, see what kind of atmosphere it leaves behind. Then the weather data or the computer models can look at this a little better and give you a better sense of what we'll see, all right? So here it is on FutureCast. This is kind of a snapshot of 3:30 in the morning. Likely a mix of snow and sleet here in Louisville. A few snowflakes, possibly some freezing drizzle in spots in southern Indiana, and definitely more of a freezing rain situation in central and southern Kentucky during that time. Now, this is what I explained. During that morning commute at 8 a.m., kind of the tail end of it, the precipitation's moving out. But look at the temperatures. I mean, my goodness, Seymour could be 18 degrees. That's a problem because that means that the road salt will not be as effective in those areas that are in or below the mid-20s. Again, it will be effective somewhat, but it's not going to be as good as, say, snow and freezing rain at 32 degrees, where it's a lot easier for the road crews and the road salt to do its thing and everything's kind of okay. So that's why we're concerned about that morning commute even after this stuff shuts down. It's totally out of here by noon, but we could see, again, some freezing drizzle continue to move through during the day. We'll see how that works out. That's a little bit of an iffy part of the forecast. And then here's that second wave of wintry mix. I know that FutureCast is trying to say this is mostly snow, but this is another situation along the same boundary where you've got warm air aloft and you could see some freezing rain and sleet out of this too. But notice how splotchy and light it is compared to the first round that moved through. Not as concerned about that impact, and it would be mainly in southern Kentucky that does see impacts from this. And then finally, we get to early Thursday morning where you could have a little bit of wintry mix or perhaps some light showers in southern Kentucky. That one looks even less impressive than the second. So it goes from not great to better to best on these 1, 2, 3 waves, but we have to, again, see how the data comes in after each run of these of course, these little perturbations, as we call them, move through here. I'm going to answer a couple of questions here before we go on to our final little bit here, because we've been on here for about 40 minutes, or I should say a little less than that, even half an hour almost. So we've got Cody saying that Grayson County schools are closed tomorrow, so they're doing the preemptive thing. That's interesting, based on forecast down there, looking for an ice glaze. That is definitely proactive. We've got Missy saying, I'm not even sure if I spelled Graupel right. You didn't, but I like your spelling because it has the word apple, and I'm hungry right now. Graupel is Graupel, and those are snow pellets. Those are even more rare than the other precipitation types I talked about. I didn't talk about that one tonight because it's mostly just snow. It kind of acts like snow and it's crunchy like snow. But I didn't want to confuse anybody and like throw just another thing at you because this is already so complex. I know this is hard. This is not easy. It's not the easiest thing in the world to communicate so many different precipitation types and the processes behind them and the impact. And it just gets a lot. I know. And our weathercasts on TV today have been just like, whoo, like, we got through that just because there's so many different things to cover and so many impacts. And of course, everybody wants to know why it's happening. So we got to explain why too. Let's see. Oh, Braden's asking a question. Let's see. Will the snow be a wet snow or a fluffy snow? It will start as a wet snow and sleet mix. It'll be a bit fluffier on the end of it, but we're also going to flip to sleet quite a bit. So there's going to be a lot of sleet in it. So it'll be not quite like the wet snow we've had in the recent past. This will be a drier version of that and kind of an icier version of that, if that makes any sense. So appreciate that question there, Braden. Peggy's like, why can't we just call them snow pellets? I know, right? That would make life easier. But we have to say grapple. And that's what that is. That's the technical term. Let's see. What time does the snow start here in Louisville? I'm pegging a little closer to that 9 p.m. time frame here. Let me show you the live radar so we can kind of look at this. We're going to see some light precipitation before that time frame, already starting to see some, but I think this will really start to crank up around that 9 o'clock time frame, which is about 20 minutes from now, and right on cue, here it comes. Starting to, of course, see all of that different Neapolitan ice cream look on the radar start to move in from our west, and some of it's heavy. Look at Evansville. Good Lord, that's pretty heavy stuff moving in. A lot of sleet, freezing rain, and snow. I know you've got the different colors here on the radar, but just imagine in your head that all of this is one color, and the color is just pink, and the pink is wintry mix. It's a mix of sleet, freezing rain, and snow. Just think about it that way. Technically, the purple, I should say, means sleet, and the pink means freezing rain, and the blue, white is kind of snow, but you know, that's tough for the radar mathematic algorithm to go through and denote which is which right now, because there's a lot of little things happening in the atmosphere that it cannot see. So good question there. That's starting very soon. Let's see. Juanita says, thank you, and please be careful driving home tonight. Yes, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge. I've done it before. That's the 24/7 job for you. You got to be here whether it's snowing or not, right? Let's see. Braden says, does wet snow make driving conditions worse than fluffy snow, or is it the other way around? Wet snow typically is easier to pack, so you can compress it better. And wet snow falls in temperatures that are warmer, so it's easier for road salt to work. So I would say wet snow is preferred for driving over a white fluffy snow. Because remember back in December when we had the Arctic blast apocalypse thing, where it got down to like 5 below zero, that snow was light and fluffy, and it did not want to move, right? You had to use a plow to get it out of the way because the road salt didn't work because it was too cold. You want that wetter snow to be able to get that out of the way a little bit better and prevent it from sticking to the ground. See if we've got any more questions. Of course, you can ask your questions on the Wave Weather and Wave Facebook pages, the live streams on both of those. I can see all of them right here and display them on our social media feeds, and I'll read them for folks who are watching live right now on Wave Weather Now. Any other questions? Chris Bowles is asking for total QPF here. That's a good question, and I will provide you with an answer, because that's really important as to breaking up that QPF, as we call it, which is quantitative precipitation forecast, just how much liquid is going to be falling from the sky here. And the answer to your question, based on the latest HRRR data here, I know this gets really nerdy, I apologize for that, but just to give you an idea, it's loading in right now, so this is not done. So you'll see that if this all were to fall as rain, come on, data, we'd have about 1/3 of an inch of rainfall out of this. And then you convert upward from there for sleet and snow. And then based on the temperature, it all gets really complex, but you get the idea. This is how much liquid we have to work with, and see where that thicker band is right across the I-64 corridor. That's where we're expecting the most sleet and snow to fall. And then the lower totals to our south would be kind of this ice glaze sort of situation. But notice there's not a ton of liquid to work with for the ice problems down in central and southern Kentucky. That's a good thing. That means that there would be lesser of that overall, of that ice glaze. And that's why we're not calling for an ice storm, only that roughly 1/10 of an inch of ice accretion. And by the way, if you look at that and say, okay, 0.17 inches of liquid, that means 0.17 inches of ice accretion, right? No, it is not like that. Unfortunately, it would be lower than that, closer to this 1/10 here, because math. That's just how physics and math works. Let's see. Debbie says, hello, Ryan. Getting something in Bardstown right now. A bit glazy on my wrought iron deck furniture. You're probably seeing a little bit of freezing rain down there, and that is no surprise given the radar presentation. Now moving into Nelson County, Louisville, and areas along the I-65 corridor. You see it here. I'll put it in live mode instead of looping here. This is all moving toward the north and east. But even where it says you've got rain right now, that's probably literally just at the airport where it's 33 degrees. Everybody else is below freezing. Sleeting in Jeffersonville, according to Nancy, right now. And again, we're trying to answer questions that will, of course, impact folks, asks, things about the commute, about the science. If you're asking about your individual location, I will point you to our maps here, just because we, of course, have so many different locations, and we can't answer everybody's questions about their exact town, county, zip code, etc. These maps kind of broadcast out what we're expecting and what our forecast is, because we could spend hours just talking about individual locations here, and that's not a constructive use of our time. If you've got a report from your location, bring it on. I want to know if you're seeing snow, sleet, freezing rain, whatever. Tell us exactly where you are for that, because that's important to us, and that helps push forward our forecast if we know what kind of precipitation is becoming predominant in the atmosphere at this time. So let's see. Trying to get any other questions here. Let's see if there's any more questions here in the feed that we can answer here. Again, we're not going to answer exact location questions, but if you've got a location report, love to hear about that. Angela says she's also seeing sleet in Bardstown. So we will definitely be watching for what kind of precipitation type comes out of that. I'm going to pop the winter weather advisory up on the screen. So we've just gotten some new information in here that the winter weather advisory has been extended northward now to cover parts of southern Indiana. In fact, on the bottom of our screen on Wave News, channel 3.1 over the air right now, the TV signal is showing this kind of coming in. That's how I just got alerted to it. This winter weather advisory now covers Clark, Floyd, Harrison, Crawford, Orange, and Washington counties here. And notice the winter storm warning is getting a little closer to us now. It's just west of Perry County. So Paducah, that National Weather Service forecast office that manages the Evansville area, now getting in on issuing a winter storm warning. Oh boy, we'll see how this goes. There's lots of reports of heavier sleet and freezing rain now in Evansville. Let's see, I've got ice pellets and sleet reported near Boonville, Indiana. That's just east of Evansville. I'm using my phone because that's where a lot of these reports come in on. Let's see what some of the latest reports have a little closer to the Evansville metro. Mixed rain or freezing rain, I should say, and sleet, more sleet. Owensboro has freezing rain as of 8:23. But they have had sleet here within the last few minutes as well. So a lot of sleet, a lot of freezing rain now. That winter weather advisory now covers almost all of our counties, minus a few to our north now. So that's interesting to see the National Weather Service kind of getting on board with expanding their winter weather advisory area here. Shonda says it's more like a fine mist rain in Jeffersonville, at least where I'm at. That's freezing drizzle that you're seeing there right now. Because if your temperature's below freezing and you see liquid falling from the sky, boop, freezing drizzle, freezing rain. You get the idea there. Would that extend to Jefferson? And I'm assuming, Neshia, you're asking about the winter storm warning extending to Louisville. We'll see how that works. I'm not quite sure what they would want to do with that, because there's a pretty strict criteria on that stuff. And I'll be curious to see if they think we're going to hit it. I'm not so sure. We'll see. Let's see. Sleet and Corridon from Katina. Thank you for that. Really appreciate your reports as always. Let's see. Ima says, are they treating the roads tonight? And yes, we've had confirmation, at least from the Kentucky side of things, that they are going to treat the roads this evening. They were supposed to start at 7 p.m. here, so we'll see how that goes. Let's see if there's any additional reports, questions that you might have. Aha, there we go. Cheyenne says, Georgetown, Indiana feels like little hail balls. So what you're probably seeing is sleet. You probably got some sleet. Now, if it's like a white colored ball instead of like a translucent or transparent one, that may be grapple, which is snow pellets. So you've either got sleet most likely or snow pellets a little less likely. Lisa's like, are they going to extend the winter storm warning to Hodgenville? We don't know. We'll have to see what the National Weather Service does based on some of the latest data that they're looking at this evening. At this point, I don't know if we would hit that criteria, but for impacts, because there's just going to be so much sleet and snow on the roads because of the temperature, we'll see what they do with that. There's kind of two schools of thought on that extension, what they would want to do with that. But I'm not so sure by the numbers that we would really get that here. I want to show you some of the raw data here, just so you can kind of see some inside baseball about what's going on in the data this evening when it comes to at least the snow part of this thing here. This is the latest data in from the high resolution rapid refresh model. And you'll see it's got that thick little band right there of sleet and snow. Louisville, Shelbyville, Frankfort looks almost identical to our forecast. Just a slightly different angle there, but it really nails Louisville and areas along I-64 with the heaviest of the sleet and the snow. When it comes to the ice part of this, let's see what we've got here. Data-wise, I can't show that exact model, it appears, but I can show one that's somewhat similar here. So you'll see the latest data also painting the heaviest ice accretion south of Louisville. I think this is a little too overzealous on the E-Town Litchfield numbers being over 1/4 of an inch. That's not in our forecast. Our forecast looks a little something like this on the ice glaze side of things right there. You'll see that 1/10 of an inch Litchfield, E-Town, Bardstown, Lebanon, Campbellsville overnight, early tomorrow. And if you did miss some of this, by the way, some of our discussion, this will be recorded. So you'll be able to see this on our Facebook pages, Wave Weather, and my Ryan Hoke -Wave page here. All right. Let's see. Any more questions? Freezing rain in Henryville. Not shocked by that report. That makes sense based on what we've been seeing this evening, report-wise and radar-wise. I'm going to pop up the radar here just so you guys can get a sense of where this is now. You know, we can show you our forecast all day, but the proof is in the pudding, as they say. So here it is, this potpourri, this Neapolitan ice cream, this wintry mix of stuff moving in from the west. Pretty much all precipitation types, including snow, sleet, and freezing rain. I have not heard many snow reports, though. I think most of this is not snow right now. Most of this is sleet and freezing rain, and it will likely continue to be like that for a while until the atmosphere can cool itself to a point where we can start to squeeze some snowflakes out of this. So initially, this will be freezing rain in Louisville, converting to a little bit of sleet, or a lot of sleet, really, and then it would go to some snow probably on the backside of this, then maybe convert back to freezing drizzle for a time. You get the idea. It's just kind of back and forth, back and forth. You just kind of need to know the impacts, and that would be snow and sleet, covered roads, ice glaze on the roads, especially south of Louisville here. Untreated roads will be a problem. Treated roads, watch for slick spots on those. Interstates will likely be okay at times tomorrow, but some of those slick spots will be real troubling where they do develop. Teddy's asking chance of overachieving here, and you're limited by the amount of precipitation that'll fall from the sky, right? We've only got about 1/3 of an inch of liquid to work with here, which is not a whole lot. So if we were to overachieve, it would be in what type of precipitation that is. So if someone gets mostly snow and gets hammered with, 2-3 inches of snow, that would overachieve, but that would be like the max you'd be able to get out of that. Or if it's all sleet and no freezing rain, no snow, and you just get a ton of sleet, that would be an overachieve in that kind of section, right? In that kind of regard. So it wouldn't necessarily be an overachieving, holy cow, we got a foot of snow. No, that would not happen with this system. Just not enough liquid for that to overachieve in an amount sort of way. It's more so what kind of precipitation do you get? And if you get all of one type, you could have a bit of an issue, all right? I hope that makes sense. Karen's like, well, we've got nothing in Prospect. Well, it's just starting there, all right? So this is still just ramping up. So be patient. It's on the way here. Let's see if we've got, Elizabeth, there we go. Orange County is getting slick, and that is not surprising. Let's pop on a couple of things here. just to kind of diagnose the situation. I'm going to be on here, by the way, for another 5 minutes. I got 5 more minutes of this, and then I got to get off here and do some prep work to revise our forecast if necessary for the 11 o'clock news. But look at Orange County, 28 degrees right now. That is our magic number for road problems when you start to get stuff moving in winter weather-wise, because even if you've been above freezing most of the day, once you get down to 28 degrees, you can get toward like a flash freeze sort of situation on the roads. Even if the air temperature is 28 degrees, the roads will very quickly follow suit. All right, pavement temperatures. These are popping onto your screen right now. They take a minute to load, and there we go. And you can see, there we go. Our pavement temperature is now at 31 in Corydon. Yikes, yikes, yikes. All right, so we're already going to start picking up some travel problems as we speak. Look, 9 o'clock almost happening, and right on the nose, that's when our impacts are starting to begin. The air temperature there is 30 degrees. Pavement is 31 in Corydon on I-64. Notice that wow, I-65 at Seymour there, that camera is covered over because the air temperature is 26 degrees, and you've had a little bit of light drizzle up there. So it's freezing to the lens. Now, the road temperature is 33, so the road's probably just fine up there through that little glaze of ice on the lens, just because the road temp is fine. Now, doesn't mean it won't be later, because I'm sure there will be some impacts from that later on here as that road temp continues to decrease. I-65 in Scottsburg, the roads are wet, 28-degree air temperature, but your pavement temp is 35. Again, it takes some time for that pavement temp to come down, but in areas like Orange County, the air temperature is so low that you've kind of got a flash freeze almost type of situation there where the roads are getting slick. Here in Louisville, you're seeing the camera there from Jeffersonville, 36-degree pavement temperature. The bridges are 34 crossing the river into Louisville. The air temp is 30. We're not at that flash freeze sort of area just yet there. So that'll take a little bit more time here in the city to see those impacts. And then on the Kentucky side of the river, Western Kentucky Parkway at Litchfield, air temperatures at freezing, pavement temp still in the 40s. Same story, Bluegrass Parkway near Bardstown, 33 degrees there. 41 is the pavement temp. And as you're over near I-64 in Frankfort, you've got a 34-degree pavement temp and an air temp of 30 degrees. We've got about 3-4 more minutes on here. I'll look through some more of your comments and questions here, and we will basically kind of sign off here shortly. Caitlin's saying, so basically Louisville doesn't need to worry. I mean, you should never worry, but Louisville needs to be prepared on this. This is a winter weather event with 1 to 2 inches of sleet and snow and a little bit of glaze of freezing rain. That's going to have an impact on our travel overnight and early tomorrow, especially on untreated roads. So I think it's a little much to say we don't need to worry about anything in Louisville, because I think we need to be concerned, but obviously you don't need to worry, because worry produces panic. Panic's not good. You don't want to do that, right? Again, this is not an ice storm. This is not 2009. This is not even technically a snowstorm or a winter storm at this point, all right? I don't think we're going to see the numbers necessary for that when it comes to ice and snow amounts. All right, Tyler says, just hit the deck from a thin layer of ice in Campbellsburg. Other areas not icy. Again, no surprise there. That's freezing rain. That's that light glaze. Please be careful on sidewalks and parking lots on your driveway tomorrow. That's going to be tricky. Even if you have just the thinnest glaze of ice, woo, your feet can go out from under you. And then obviously you can be injured by that, and that's no good. So please be careful on there. Let's see. Let's see if there's any other questions or comments or concerns here that we can, of course, communicate with you guys here. I'll put that snow and sleet map back on there so you guys can get the idea. Let's see. Ann Sawyer says a 94 flashback would be nice. Oh, let's not do that. I don't think we're going to do that. We don't have enough precipitation, enough liquid in the atmosphere to do that at this point. Gail says, if you have to be out, slow down. If you don't have to be out, stay home. Always good advice in a situation like this, no matter how minor the winter weather. Glenda says, thank you. Stay safe. I appreciate you guys being on here this evening. All 194 folks here on our social media and countless others on our Wave Weather Now live stream that you can get on, of course, the Wave Now app for your smart TV device like Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire. And you can get it on our website, wave3.com. And, of course, on the Wave Weather app, you can watch our Wave Weather Now live stream. Just tap Watch Live. It's that easy. Let's see here. And Sawyer also hoping for a snow day. I know so many kids and adults alike are probably hoping for that as well. Hey, one quick thing before we go here, because we've got about a minute left. I just want to talk about Groundhog Day. That's Thursday. Will Punxsutawney Phil see his shadow? It looks like there's some clouds that will be in the forecast up there in western Pennsylvania near Punxsutawney. So he may not see his shadow. We'll see. But the groundhog is accurate only 39% of the time. And as always, you can get accurate weather forecasts. See how I did that? That's called a segue, a transition, with Wave Weather Now, which I just discussed. You can get it on our website, your smart TV, Wave Now apps, which is Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV, and of course on wave3.com/weather/weather now. If you can type all that in, or just go to wave3.com and you can navigate there from there. All right, guys, thank you so much for, of course, the information. We really appreciate it. Tyler is reporting that Evansville schools may be closed. Yikes. Yep. I would not be surprised given what they've seen out there a little earlier this evening. We will have our closings, of course, on wave3.com and scrolling at the bottom of the screen as they come in tonight. And tomorrow, I believe there will be some closings. We will see who makes that decision and when. All right, guys, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. I'm meteorologist Ryan Hoke. Be safe tonight. Stay in if you don't have to be out. If you do have to be out tonight and early tomorrow morning, take it slow, use common sense, and let's all get through this together. Bye, everybody now.